Robert M. Morgenthau, the boss. In a few minutes, we'll present some very important historical moments and programmatic achievements from among the very, very many that animated Bob Morgenthau's tenure as chairman of this museum. These moments will be narrated by museum trustees and others. Before that, I want to just describe some of the mail that we've received at the museum over the past several days. Many people have sent letters of congratulations to Bob Morgenthau, citations, and proclamations in his honor. I am the messenger of greetings and tributes from Senator Charles Schumer, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Representative Jerry Nadler, Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, State Senator Daniel Squadron, City Council Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, and Mayor Bill de Blasio. So all those letters and proclamations are waiting for you, boss, upstairs in my office. I won't quote for them because we'd be here till breakfast. So, to begin the tribute in chief, I want to begin by introducing several people in person who would like to make some comments in Bob's honor. Is Mayor Dinkins here? Okay, let's start with Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I was honored to be asked to come and share some remarks about Bob, both in a personal sense and about what you've given to this city and obviously to this great museum. I just want to tell you that Bob Morgenthau was a prosecutor like no other one. He took a great office, made it even greater, and when we look back on the history of New York City and how we have reached this era where we are the safest big city in America, Bob's hand in achieving that goal was evident everywhere you look. And his leadership of our office was spectacular. And as I took the job to replace him in 2010, I got an even deeper understanding of how extraordinary Bob's leadership was of this institution. And it's been driven by simple goals, fairness, nonpartisanship, and integrity through Bob's leadership. And following that, my job was to make sure that those goals were continued. And I believe they are. So Bob, on a personal note, I just want to tell you what a mentor you have been to me and so many others, what a phenomenal public servant you have been, obviously, to the city. We can all attest to that, but I can attest to it, having now sitting in your seat, and how much your friendship has meant to all of us here today. And I didn't know that Bob was going to step down as chairman. I recently learned that. But you've had 3 decades of extraordinary leadership of Bob Morgenthau as well. And under Bob's leadership, I know the museum had a unique vision, committed to principles of social justice, education, and culture in the Jewish community and beyond. And I know that the museum has grown significantly under Bob's stewardship, tripling in size and enriching the lives of 1.5 million visitors. Today, thanks to Bob, the trustees, and all of those associated with the museum, it's one of our county, Manhattan's, most vital cultural institutions. And Bob, your role in making this organization that which it is today is critical. And so I'm going to leave a letter to the Board of Trustees, which I'd like to simply have as part of the letters that are given to Bob, and say to you in closing, thank you for all you've done for all of us. It has been remarkable to have your help and friendship.
First, congratulations, District Attorney Morgenthau. The governor would have loved to have been here. Tonight's hopefully the end of the legislative session, so he's actually stuck in Albany. But he wanted me to send his very, very best and all of his congratulations. I must say, on a personal note, it is an intimidating honor to be asked even on his behalf to say a few words to you and about you. You are someone I believe is truly a living legend, and I've believed that for a long time. And I can tell you the governor, I've worked for him for a while now, he loved working for you. And he loved his years in the DA's office under your tutelage, and he still has on his desk today his assistant district attorney badge that he keeps there proudly. And I think that was a truly formative experience for him, and but it is similar, I think, to thousands of other prosecutors and lawyers you've trained all those years. So I did want to mention that. Look, I think Robert Morgenthau, to someone like myself who spent more than 5 years as a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, Robert Morgenthau is a prosecutor's prosecutor. And I could go on and on, but I think it's well established, and I don't need to establish it, what Bob Morgenthau has meant for the law enforcement community in New York. But I have to say, on a personal note, for a guy like me, whose grandparents fled Germany and arrived in Washington Heights in late 1938, and whose great-grandfather died in Auschwitz, Mr. Morgenthau means much, much more. And through his leadership of this incredible museum, you have built something that serves, in my opinion, as just a bright, shining beacon of remembrance, of legacy, of history, of pain, but also of justice, and a symbol of strength and the triumph of good over evil. And I think, of course, all those things are all linked up in Robert Morgenthau and his whole career, not only as a prosecutor, but everything else he's done with his life. And you have been all about justice and all about righting wrongs and all about protecting those who need to be protected. Mr. Morgenthau, I never got to work for you, and I'm disappointed in that, and I never got to call you boss. But I'll just end by saying that though I can't call you boss, I am going to call you my idol. So congratulations.
If you get old enough, they ask you to speak. So my father of blessed memory once told me that he was 120 years old with overtime. So I think I understand that. I've been asked to step forward to speak as the founding chairman of this institution and the task force, and to sort of give you a brief history of what happened with our task force that was created by Ed Koch. Judah Gribbets, sitting here, was a member of that task force. And then Manfred Ornstein joined us later on as a co-chair. Every good institution has its founding fathers. Former Mayor Ed Koch was ours. Mayor Koch had an abiding interest in the Holocaust, perhaps based on his own World War II experience, and he created the Mayor's Task Force in 1981 to examine what kind of Holocaust memorial New York City needed. He asked me to chair the task force and to make the recommendations for a memorial befitting our great city. 27 members of that task force, representing multiple stakeholders of the Jewish community, including survivors, scholars, lay and religious leaders, posed fundamental questions. What should and would constitute an appropriate memorial? How should this memorial present itself to the public? Where should it be located? What and where are the Holocaust resources currently available in New York City? After researching other institutions, hearing testimony from survivors and scholars, receiving feedback from the public, the committee determined that we needed to create a living memorial, a museum that would not only speak of the victims' death, but of their lives. It should have 3 distinct areas: Jewish life before the Holocaust, during the Holocaust, and after the Holocaust. We wrote up this report, which is here. If some of you haven't seen it, it's an extremely interesting report. I gave it to Ed Koch as the chairman and made the recommendations. You all remember Ed Koch. And I remember at that moment he said, "Okay, George, go do it." And I remember immediately I said I had two conditions. One, I wanted a co-chair, that I felt it's too much of a responsibility to do alone. I didn't think I was capable of doing it alone. And I thought that the most perfect person on that moment that I thought to ask the mayor to appoint was Bob Morgenthau, who joined me as co-chair. And I think it related to my father, who was the chairman of the Vadotzala Rescue Organization during the war, and had meetings with Bob's father in the Treasury Department, trying to rescue Jews during the war and after, that I felt there was some kind of relationship. And the second thing I asked him, which I will say publicly, that he would agree the museum should be closed Saturday and Jewish holidays. And I said to him at that moment, it's not because I'm Orthodox. It's because we're not creating just a museum. This is a memorial. And there needs to be some sanctity attached to a memorial, especially on the Holocaust, which memorializes the death of 6 million Jews. And he said, you must be joking. Saturday is the most important visiting day in every museum. And I think I said to him, that's true, but I think you think about it, you'll agree. And the Board of Trustees unanimously agreed the museum to be closed Saturday and Jewish holidays. Our original location was not the one we are sitting in today. We found ourselves negotiating with the federal government, with state government, with the city, and we all agreed to move to the Customs House, which was the location of the museum when the Battery Park came to us, and through Governor Cuomo and Sandy Fruscia, and offered us this site on the edge of New York Harbor. A memorandum of understandings were signed, the leases were drawn up, the bottom fell out of the real estate industry, and we were in a difficult position. And I remember the meeting was in Howard Rubenstein's office, where we all sat and said, what do we do? And we looked at Bob, and we said, Bob, and others joined. The first few $1 million were given by Peter Calico, Bruce Ratner, myself, and a few others. And we were on the way again with difficulty. But then stepped up to the plate Mayor Giuliani. And Mayor, I remember our meeting Bob, we went to see the mayor, and he was kind enough, I will tell you, in figures within the $20 million range that really put us on the way. He provided the city money to get us started, and for there, corporate and individual donors signed on to make the museum a reality. Born of Ed Koch's vision, developed as a public-private partnership, the Museum of Jewish Heritage began and took its roots in downtown Manhattan.
Remember, never forget, there is hope for your future. These words, engraved at the entrance to the core exhibition, eloquently and simply define the mission of the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust. The dedication of the museum was a dream come true, decades in the making. The physical repository of objects and memories of Jewish life in the 20th century was a living memorial at last. The winds howled, the rain poured down, but nothing could dampen the hopefulness of September 11th, 1997, for the thousands of people gathered to witness the consecration of New York City's Holocaust Museum. For the survivors who loaned or gave objects for the gallery educators, our docents, who had trained without a museum, for the elected officials who provided key financial support, for the donors who kept us on track. It was a day of overwhelming emotion. There was simultaneous sadness and joy. When Cardinal John Cardinal O'Connor thanked God and asked forgiveness, quote, "For all Christians who by action or inaction, by word or by silence, helped in any way to make the horrors of the Shoah possible, or even worse, to have actually contributed to those horrors." You could hear a pin drop. What an emotional moment. When Rabbi Ronald Sobel, here with us today, exhorted us to behold a living memorial to the Holocaust, he told us, too, that our task was yet unfinished. When Robert Morgenthau stood up on that stage with his hair blowing in the wind, telling us that our museum was showing the renewal of Jewish life and the triumph of humanity over inhumanity, we knew that we had reached a long-awaited milestone. Holocaust survivors had waited for half a century to see a memorial to their loved ones created in New York City. And it wasn't a stone monument. It was and is a living tribute to their struggles and hardship. Born of Bob's faith, dedicated to memory and hope, our museum, the Museum of Jewish Heritage, opened its doors at last. Thank you.
It was at Forlini's, not in the boss's booth in the back, but at a table near the front. The date was September 26th or 27th, 2001. It was the first time I had seen Bob Morgenthau since the 9/11 attacks. I had been stranded in Berlin and had trouble getting back to New York City. His instructions to me were clear and were delivered in his inimitable, deep voice. "David, get that museum open as soon as possible." "But boss," I said, "we're in the middle of the frozen zone. There are roadblocks all around us." "I'll take care of the roadblocks," he replied. "You get the museum cleaned, get it repaired, get it open." "Well, what about the East Wing?" I asked. We were scheduled to break ground on our extension in October. "We start as soon as possible," he replied, without hesitation. "We can't let those bastards deter us. If we don't move forward, we'll be left behind." I did not tell him what I was thinking at that moment. Is it really prudent to invest $65 million in a severely wounded neighborhood whose future is far from clear? But I followed his instructions, and we got the museum opened on October 5th with Governor Pataki and Senator Clinton in attendance. At that event, our chairman said, "This museum stands nobly with its neighbors, the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, the enduring symbols of the freedoms that this country holds dear. The museum represents the ability of human beings to rebuild after catastrophe. It is a symbol of remembrance and renewal, and that is why it is so important that we reopen now." We broke ground for the East Wing in November, beginning the first new construction in Lower Manhattan following 9/11. Trucks delivering new steel for our foundation and footings mixed in West Street traffic with trucks removing twisted steel from the World Trade Center. A startling and palpable metaphor of rebirth following tragedy, a message that all of us at the museum knew and know by heart. Born of his family legacy, tempered by his experience in World War II, honed by his love of life, the wisdom and confidence that Bob Morgenthau expressed at Forlini's on that September day righted a ship in distress, steadied its course, and calmed a grateful crew.
So this is kind of my first moment really as chairperson. And so how fitting it is, Bob, that we get to honor you with this moment and to have this very special time to not talk about business, but to talk about you and all the wonderful things you've done. I'd like to say that probably the most important thing, this is of course an honor and it's a job. Most of all, it's a responsibility. And it's a responsibility, Bob, to follow in the way that you've led, and to follow the work that everybody here has done in a way that makes us all proud. And it's also a responsibility for those who perished, related or unrelated to us, and for those who are living, and to continue a tradition both with the museum and the Jewish people. And so I look at it, not so much as a job or an honor, but as a responsibility, and it is humbling. I said to somebody before, I don't get nervous really about anything. That's maybe why I take risk in my business. This I'm nervous about because, Bob, to follow you is a difficult task, and I just pray that I can do as much or close to as much as you've been able to do, and all of you, because I always say there's no such word as me, there's only the word we. So it's all the people in the room, and particularly you, Bob, who has led this museum in a way that one cannot almost imagine looking out the window on a beautiful day, whether it be the location or all of us in the room, boats going by, and that's where you started much of your life, in a boat. So think about it. Bob Morgenthau wing of the Museum of Jewish Heritage was the very first new construction project to be completed since the attacks. For me, this wing will forever stand as a monument to Bob's intelligence, his perseverance, and his commitment to the Jewish people and the lessons of Jewish history. It will also remind us that the destruction of 9/11, as terrible as it was, will ultimately be in the shadows of the living, that our power to remember must always be infused with our commitment to the good and to rebuilding. The Robert Morgenthau Wing officially opened to the public, and with it, a completed vision of the Museum of Jewish Heritage, state-of-the-art theater, classrooms, teacher resource center, additional exhibition space, an events hall, and a cafe. The New York Times heralded it as the first significant physical expression of the cultural rebirth of Lower Manhattan since the attack on New York. Born of your tenacity, named for your spirit, the Robert M. Morgenthau Wing has become a cultural icon for the New York City of future and of today. Thank you, Bob.
Well, I want to thank all of you for those very generous remarks. I wish I was the person you described. But the thing I've always thought about the museum, directors, supporters, staff, friends, that it's a family. It's a family operation, and we've always done things by consensus, and that's the way it should be. The decisions have always had the support of everyone involved, and we've had some great exhibits. And I've always thought that the museum should reach out to people. We just don't want to talk to ourselves. And I mean, that's the reason that I invited Todd O'Connor to participate in the dedication of the building. And he was extraordinary. I don't know whether you all have noticed this, but there was a letter from his sister in Catholic New York, which said that she had done research and found out that Colonel O'Connor and her mother was Jewish. So Colonel O'Connor had no knowledge of that. So I don't know if that explains anything of his action or not, but he was a terrific guy. And he wasn't just a talker. He arranged for every Catholic school child to visit this museum at sometime during their school career. And that's been a very important part of our existence. It's just we reached out to the cadets at Annapolis and West Point, and Air Force and Coast Guard to bring them down. It's important to reach out to everybody. And I think the staff, led by David, has done a terrific job in this respect. You heard Judah talk about some of the exhibits. We tried initially to concentrate on the fighting myths that were out there, like why weren't the Jews fighting in World War II? And we showed that there were 550,000 Jews in the armed services of the United States. And then, the feeling, why didn't they resist? We had we had an exhibit on Jewish resistance. Of course, they weren't all as heavy. We had an exhibit on Mahjong, which I was opposed to. I thought it was frivolous, but it was tremendously popular. A very popular exhibit. The one exhibit that I particularly liked was an exhibit on refugee professors who taught at 10 all-black colleges in the South. And I thought that was very, very moving. And we had people from those colleges speak about what it had meant to them. And a number of those professors, after they got over here, received offers from Harvard and Yale and Princeton, but not one of them deserted their post at those black colleges. And I thought that was a great effort. But I want to take this opportunity again to thank all of you. And I mean, I couldn't have done 5% of what all of us have done together, 100%. It's been a team effort, and I feel very fortunate that Bruce Ratner has been willing to take on the responsibility of chairman. He'll find that he gets great cooperation, and he's a terrific guy, and he comes from a family that is dedicated to public service and the Jewish causes. When Steve Kaufman's son was getting married in Cleveland, when I was going out there, and I saw that as an opportunity to maybe raise a few dollars. And I knew the then head of the Ratner organization and asked him if he maybe could introduce me to a couple of people. And he said, well, I'll have a little reception for you. He had 55 members of the Ratner family showed up. So you're not just getting Bruce, you're getting a whole family. But again, I really want to thank all of you, and I want you to know that every one of you is important to the future of this museum and was important in the past. I'm not going to try to single people out, because if I do, I'll forget people or miss people. But it was everybody. It was a team effort, and we got to keep it that way.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support Shalom TV with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double high or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the Shalom TV website homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive on DVD with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.